batter for Sufganiyot, which is a Hanukkah tradition, a jelly donut. And we're going to make some of the world's freshest lemonade. And I'll explain exactly how that's going to work once we get started with our stream here. So just hang tight for a couple minutes as we get ready to go live, and then we'll jump into the kitchen and take off here. So let's see. Thank you for tuning in. And Thomas Smith, we are live here, and today we are going to be making a couple of things in the kitchen. We're going to make the batter for Sufganiyot, which are a traditional Hanukkah donut. And we're also going to make the world's freshest lemonade. And I'll explain that in a moment. But let's go ahead and dive in. Let's switch on over to the kitchen, and I'll meet you over there. All right, so as you can see, got everything all nicely decorated in the background here for Hanukkah. It's coming up on the fourth night of Hanukkah now. So I'm excited to jump in and start cooking some Sufganiyot. And if you haven't tried these before, they are a donut, a jelly donut. And I'm going to be cooking from the Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook. This is by Beth Lee. Beth is based in the San Francisco Bay Area like me. And this is fast becoming one of the most popular new cookbooks covering Jewish cooking, in particular Jewish baking. So there's a lot of really great Hanukkah recipes, cookies, that kind of thing. And today I'm going to be making Sufganiyot. That's, again, this classic Hanukkah dish that's basically like little jelly donuts. And you can see looking through here, there's all kinds of really great recipes. Everything is nicely illustrated here in the Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook. See if I can get some of these nice, you can see, bagels and traditional things here. And just making a lot of different really exciting. We've got challah, so again, some of the most sort of popular greatest hits in here. And Beth was kind enough to send me a copy of this to check it out, so I'm very excited to do that. And again, today we're going to get started on the batter for Sufganiyot. So these are jelly-filled donuts, and it does take many hours to make these. So we're just going to get started making the batter. You want to fry them. They actually are deep fried, but that happens right before you eat them. And my Hanukkah meal is not until tonight. So today we're going to make ahead that batter. We're also going to make something that'll go great that we can eat right now during this live stream. We're going to make the world's freshest lemonade. And I'll explain why it's the world's freshest lemonade in a bit, but I've got my lemons and I've got a couple of other items here we're going to use to make that. This is live, so if you have any questions about any of the things I'm demonstrating here, feel free to ask them in the chat, and I'm happy to answer those for you and share some of these different items I'm using. So again, we're going to bake. This is on page 119 of the Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook. We're going to go ahead and dive in and make our Sufganiyot. So in our first step, in a medium bowl, we're going to whisk together flour, sugar, yeast, and salt. So I see we need 2 1/4 cups of flour. That's 281 grams of flour. And you can actually measure with a cup measure, sort of standard cup measure, or you can actually use something more precise. A lot of bakers really want to get very precise with their measurements. So this is a great option for that. This is the OXO Good Grips kitchen scale, and it'll measure up to 5 pounds, but it'll measure in grams or ounces. And you can get a super precise measurement, figure out exactly the amount of each of your ingredients that you're going to be putting into your dish. So I'm going to use the OXO Good Grips scale here, and I'm going to first make sure that it's zeroed. So you can see there's a function on here to zero the scale with a particular weight. So I'm going to zero it out with my measuring cup on there. So we're at 0 here. Then I'm going to go ahead and grab some flour. And I actually like to store the flour in OXO Good Grips storage containers. So I can show you here. These are really great because they have this lid that pops on the top, and this actually pops down, it expands out a little seal on the side, and it keeps the flour or sugar or whatever you've got in there really fresh. So you can see I've got this. I'll pop it open, and that means my flour is fresh, and I can store quite a lot of flour and not have to worry about it kind of going bad over time. So I'm going to go ahead and show that, and I'll just grab my weight here. So again, I want 281 grams of flour. So I'm going to grab some here, and I've zeroed out my scale, and I'm just going to go ahead and start pouring this in. Now I'm in ounces on my measurement here. I'm going to go ahead and switch on over so I can get my measurement in grams. This is 126 grams. So that should be about a cup there. Then I'm going to go ahead and keep doing this. So I've got 2 cups going on, and we'll do our quarter cup. And again, we can measure really precisely. And we switch back over so you can see highlighted here. This is the OXO Good Grips kitchen scale. And I find this is great. I like to make cold brew coffee, so I find this works really well for measuring out the exact amount of coffee grounds I'm going to be putting in there. I can even scoop directly because I did zero this with the actual scoop on here. Great. And then I'm going to do a quarter cup on here. So I can grab my quarter cup measure, or I can do, let me see if I've got one over here. Okay, do half of this, and this is where having the gram weight measurement works really well, because I don't have a precise cup here, so I can zero this on the scale, and then I can measure out however much of my flour I need to get my exact quarter cup weight on there. Okay, perfect. So I've got my flour in the bowl here, and now I need to get the sugar. So I've got my sugar over here, and gonna need, let's see, we'll just do this the traditional way. It's not as important, I think, with sugar. We need 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar. So I've got my tablespoon measure here. Let's go ahead and grab 3 tablespoons of that. And if you're just joining me, I'm making the batter for Sufganiyot. It's a traditional Hanukkah jelly donut. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat. Got my flour in, I've got my sugar in there, and then we're going to go for the yeast and salt. So I'm going to use 2 1/4 teaspoons of my active or instant dry yeast. So I've got that here. I'm just going to use this Red Star. You can use any brand of yeast. This is the not the kind you have to keep in the fridge. You can just keep it in these nice packages here. I'm going to go ahead and cut one of these off, and then I'm going to measure out my 2 1/4 teaspoons. So I've got my teaspoon measure. Let's measure out our yeast. And again, this is all coming out of the Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up by a Bay Area author, and it shares about 50 recipes. Really traditional, great things for Hanukkah, for all kinds of holidays. You can see my Hanukkah decorations up in the background here. So I've got my 1 teaspoon here. And because these are donuts, they're going to get nice and puffy. So the yeast is going to help these to rise. And we're going to do several steps of rising. We're not going to wait around on the stream to do that. But again, that's just why I'm showing we're going to need a little bit more yeast here, why I'm showing making the dough for this, the batter for this. It's going to sit, it's going to rise, and then right before I eat it later, I'm going to deep fry these to actually make the donuts. Today, though, we're just going to go ahead and make that batter. So let me pour this in. We've got 2 teaspoons there. And then we're going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of that yeast. So actually a little more yeast than I was expecting there. We'll go ahead and measure this out. And again, I think this is a really great cookbook. I'm excited to make a lot of the recipes in here. So I've got my yeast in there. And now I'm going to do the wet ingredients. I'm going to add milk, oil, egg, vanilla, and lemon zest. And we'll get to the lemon zest in a second. So for the milk, I'm going to need, let's see how much I need here. We need 2/3 of a cup of warm milk. So let me get a liquid measuring cup. And we are live, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat. So I'm going to measure out my 2/3 of a cup here. And I'm just going to warm that up in the microwave for a second. And let's see, next we've got, that's heating up. We need some oil. We're going to need a lot more oil to fry these later, but for now, let's go ahead and grab, we need 2 tablespoons of oil. So I'm going to go ahead and get that here. My first tablespoon. And my second, 2 tablespoons of oil. And then we're going to need an egg. I think we just need 1 large egg. Luckily, I have chickens, so I've always got eggs around. I'll go ahead and grab an egg here. Really nice to have backyard hens in these kinds of situations because you got the super fresh eggs coming out. Now, if you're just joining me, I am cooking live some Sufganiyot from the Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook. If you have any questions, just follow along. I'm showing some of the equipment that I'm using, mostly OXO good grips that I like to use in the kitchen. I just put my egg in here, and then I'm going to grab this milk, washing my hands. Grab this warmed up milk, and we're going to go ahead and add that into the mixture here. And then we need some vanilla. It's a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my 1/2 teaspoon. And we'll add this. Okay, so let me make sure I've got everything. We've got the flour, sugar, yeast, and salt. And as I showed, with the flour, I like to store it in this Good Grips container. You can see when I'm done, I just put this back on, push that top down, it locks it in. It'll keep my flour nice and fresh, so I'm good and finished there. Let's see, did I miss anything? No, I think we're all good. And I have the sugar in the same container over here. Another OXO Good Grips container, again with these little lids that pop in. It's nice to see that. I'll go ahead and close it up. And we've got our flour, sugar, yeast, and salt. We added in our milk, oil, egg, vanilla, the lemon zest. So this is one where, again, I think OXO Good Grips makes some really great equipment that you can use. I've got a couple of lemons. These are special. We'll get to that in a little bit when we make our lemonade. But this is the OXO Good Grips box grater. I'll pull this up. And you can see with this grater, you've got a variety of different levels of coarseness. So this would be good for grating cheese. We've got a thin grater on here. We've got this very fine grater that we'll use to zest these lemons right in. So let me wash them really quickly here. And then I'm just going to use this OXO Good Grips grater. And again, I'm going to select the side here that's the finest to get that zest. I'm just going to try to get some of that zest from these lemons. So we're just basically taking the very outer layer of the skin here. That's where most of the essential oils are located. We'll get that nice lemony flavor in our Sufganiyot batter here. So I'm going to zest these. And it's calling for, let's see how much zest we actually need to have here. 1 teaspoon. So I think these 2 smaller Meyer lemons will probably be enough. And when you do grate, because it is a really fine edge on this OXO Good Grips box grater, a lot of the zest is going to stick on the inside. So we're going to want to zest this, and then we're going to want to take that zest from the inside, probably using a knife, or just you can tap the side of that carefully. I'll probably do this with something else to be extra safe. Get all that good zest going in there. Do my other lemon now. Again, you can see grating, and we're getting our zest on the side of that. You can also do a slightly, if you want a coarser zest, you can also do a slightly coarser one on here. So again, this is the slightly coarser grind. You can go ahead and do that just to see what we get out of it. Get a little bit different thickness of zest. So I'll go ahead and do that on here. And getting some good zest off of this. This is apparently optional. You don't have to add in lemon zest, but since I have a bunch of lemons, and we're going to talk about lemonade in a little bit, I thought this would be a nice way to include that. So let's go ahead and grate a bit more of this. Now I'm going to take one of my spoons actually, and I'm going to scoop and just try to get as much of that good zest out of here as I can. I've got quite a lot coming in now. So let me jump back over. You can see the book that we're cooking from here, Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook. This is what we've got at the moment. So here's our mixture. We've got our batter coming along. Now our next step is we're going to mix this until a rough, wet dough forms. And I like to keep my utensils over in this little dough-in holder here. I'll take a look and see if I can pull that guy up. This is the dough-in kitchen utensil storage container, so got it right here next to my stove. And it keeps all of your utensils really easy to access. Dough-in actually sent this to me. It's ceramic, so it's nice and strong. It's got this grip on the bottom. It's like a cork material that keeps it from sliding, and it's really helpful to just have things like whisks out where it's easy to access those from the countertop. And speaking of whisks, the one I'm going to use here is actually my OXO Good Grips whisk. And this is a good whisk if you want to have something that we're going to get a good kind of balloon whisk action going here. So I'm going to mix this up, get our batter going. And I think, save for the lemon zest, this is just a pretty simple, basic batter. And once it starts to get onto my whisk quite a lot here, I'm going to switch over and grab a wooden spoon, again out of that dough-in storage container, and we'll finish this as it starts to come together. And we want to mix it with a wooden spoon until a rough, wet dough forms, which I think this is starting to qualify as a rough, wet dough. Okay, looking good here. So now we're going to knead this. So I'm going to move the items out of the way here that I've been working with. And we're going to place the dough on a well-floured surface. We're going to dust the top with flour and knead for about 2 minutes. So I'll go ahead and do that on my countertop here. Again, these OXO Good Grips containers are great because it's so easy to just grab a little more flour here, and I just pop the top off of that. I don't have to go and get a bag of flour and open it up or anything. So I'm going to take some flour and flour my work surface down here. I've just got nice, pretty basic countertops here, and I'm going to turn this out onto that surface. And now I'm going to grab a bit of this flour, again out of that Good Grips container. And we'll go ahead and knead this for 2 minutes. And if it gets sticky, we can add a little bit more flour to it. So I'm just going to jump back again to that Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook. We can talk about that a bit while I'm kneading this. Doesn't seem too sticky. It's getting on my hands a bit, so I'm just going to throw a little more flour on top there. And I'm going to use my Alexa. Alexa, set a timer for 2 minutes. So we'll get that going. So this is, again, there's a lot of really great recipes that you can find in that Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook. And right now I'm just basically kneading the dough out here. I'll move these things out of the way so you can see a little bit better. But you can make challah, you can make all kinds of different cookies, you can make hamantashen, so any of the sort of traditional meals for different Jewish holidays you can very readily make using that cookbook. And I've heard from a lot of people that they've made a lot of different recipes. I'm just getting started. Again, the author was kind enough to send me a copy so I can test these things out. But I've heard some really good things about that cookbook, and I think that's, I'm looking forward to making all kinds of items in there. And it's great to support also an author based here in the Bay Area, which is where I'm located. So we're just going to keep kneading this dough 2 minutes, and I just added a little more of that flour. Again, it's nice to be able to just reach right into that OXO Good Grips container and pull that out. So I got this dough coming along, grab a little bit more of the flour here. And yeah, I'm just excited to try out, cooking a lot more of the recipes. It's neat to have a whole book devoted just to baking recipes. I think there's a lot of different, really good Jewish food in a lot of different areas. But to have a book that's completely devoted just to baked goods, especially, a lot of people are baking more now. A lot of people have discovered baking for the first time, so I think the timing of this is great. And we're coming into, again, the Hanukkah holiday, so a nice time to be making these more celebratory dishes. You're not going to find the cooked Hanukkah dishes in here, like latkes, things you would fry on the countertop that aren't really a baked good. You can see how our dough is coming along here, looking pretty good. Going to need this for another minute or so, a little bit longer. And looking pretty good. Okay, so our next step here, we're going to take that bowl and we're going to oil the bowl we just used. We're going to place the dough back inside. So let's go ahead and oil this. I'll bring it over here. We'll grab a little bit of oil and add that in. We don't want the dough to stick. And then we're going to start it rising. And as I said, it's going to rise for about an hour. And then we're going to cut out the donuts. There's a second rise, actually, that happens after that, and then we would fry these on the stovetop and fill them with jelly to make the jelly donuts. So this will actually double in size. We're not going to wait around for an hour and a half to do the next step. So we're just going to show today how you actually make the dough, and then you can continue to follow. So if you find this compelling and you think, well, I really want to see how this turns out, then go ahead below me here in the carousel. You can find the Essential Jewish cooking or baking book, rather, and do this for yourself if you want to try making some Sufganiyot. We'll just show the first step there, and again, this is going to sit. I'm going to cover it with a wet towel. So it says, let's see, cover with a towel, rise until doubled in size, about 1 hour. So I'm just going to take a little of this paper towel. I'm going to wet it a little so it doesn't stick to my dough. And then I'm just going to cover this up here in my bowl, put it in a nice warm place on top of my stove here, and then we're going to let that sit and rise. And that'll be it for what we're going to do today with the Sufganiyot. But again, if you want to do it yourself and follow through and do the whole recipe, the next step would be after it rises, there's a second rise and then frying, and these will be really delicious for my Hanukkah meal later. So check out the Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook down there in the carousel. So I'm going to wash my hands really quickly, and then we'll do a second recipe here. And this one is going to be really simple, but really delicious. So I call this, it's again very, very simple, but I call this the world's freshest lemonade. And the reason for that is that I have a Meyer lemon tree in my backyard, and I actually picked these. I can go right outside and pick these little Meyer lemons. They're very small, but they're very delicious, and I've got a big bowl of these Meyer lemons. So I'm going to go ahead and actually wipe the surface off a little bit so we can go on to our next recipe. Then I'll grab a cutting board I can put down here so we don't get any of this flour on into our lemonade. So we'll grab that. Okay, so I'm going to take a bunch of these Meyer lemons, and we are going to make lemonade. And again, I can go right out and pick as I'm done. That's why I'm calling it the freshest lemonade in the world, because these come straight off of my own tree in my own backyard. You can see we've got a lot of lemon motif going on in the kitchen anyway. So here's my big bowl of lemons. So I'm going to actually make this in a mocktail style. So I'm going to use this. This is the OXO Good Grips single wall cocktail shaker, and it makes it really easy to make nice cocktails and mocktails. And we're going to mix this up in order to chill that lemonade really quickly, because these are literally came from outdoors. So they're not going to be cool like you'd get lemons in the refrigerator. So we're going to chill that down by using our OXO Good Grips cocktail shaker, and I'll show you how to juice these really easily too. So first I'm going to take a bunch of these lemons and I'm going to cut them in half, being really careful here on my cutting board. Let me move the Sufganiyot dough, put it somewhere else so it's easier to see what I'm up to here. I'm going to move these guys out of the way for now. So I'm just cutting these in half on my cutting board. And you can use as many as you want depending on how much lemonade you want to do. I'm probably going to use 4 lemons because I just want to make enough lemonade for myself at the moment. I can always make more later. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these all up in half and end up with some nice halved Meyer lemons there. Now my next step, there's actually a tool that's going to make the juicing of these way easier. Firstly, I'm going to take my OXO Good Grips cocktail shaker. I'm going to put some ice in this. Okay, so I've got a bunch of ice in my cocktail shaker here, and this is live, so if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now I'm going to take these nice Meyer lemon halves, and I'm going to use this, which is my OXO Good Grips citrus juicer. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this guy. This is really awesome. It's kind of like an enamel-coated tool, and you can actually put your citrus right in there, and then it's super strong, so you can actually get quite a lot of force as you squeeze this together, and it's actually going to squeeze the juice out of these lemons and also strain the seeds out at the same time. So we don't get any of that pith or any of those seeds. I just place the half of this Meyer lemon in here. I'm going to turn this over and put it on top of my OXO Good Grips cocktail shaker and just give it a solid squeeze like that. And it's going to get quite a lot of juice out. If you're just joining me, we are live here. We're making the world's freshest lemonade. These are some Meyer lemons that I actually just picked in my own backyard. So let's go ahead and juice all of these halves. And you can see we're getting some really great juice out of it with this OXO Good Grips juicer. So again, I did about 4 lemons here, and you can see I can process these really quickly, get that great juice out of them. And I'm going to do this in a mocktail style, so I've got some ice in here. And I'm just going to keep going here, zesting, juicing, getting all of this out of these. And let me check how we're doing. Looking pretty good. Let's do a couple more of these. I don't even know if I need to do all 4 of the lemons at the moment. I can always juice more later or use it as a garnish. Let's do one more here so we get just a bit more juice going on in our OXO Good Grips cocktail shaker. So yeah, I really love this this juicer because you don't have to sit there turning citrus on top of a traditional juicer. This just makes it so easy. As you can see, I put the half in, squeeze it, and it really extracts all of the juice, and it does keep those seeds inside of here. So it's really easy to avoid those falling into my lemonade. You can see that down in the carousel down there. So I've got my juice now in there. Now I'm going to add some water, and I'm just going to do this over at the refrigerator. I'll be right back. And you can add water to taste. I'm going to add about half a cup of water in here because you don't want to drink pure lemon juice, obviously. And then the final ingredient is I'm going to grab a little bit of simple syrup. So the simple syrup is going to sweeten this. It's going to make it something that you would actually want to drink. So let me go ahead and grab my simple syrup, and I'll put that in. So we got a bit of that here. I'm going to put just a bit. It's to taste, really. I'll probably put in about a tablespoon of that to start, and we'll see where we end up. So I've got that in my OXO Good Grips shaker. Now the cool thing with the shaker is that it actually has a lid that's also a strainer, so I can have ice You can see I've got some ice and my juice inside of there. And then I've got this lid, and it's actually got the pouring spout on here and a strainer on the inside. And you can even use this as a measuring cup if you want to measure out if you're making a cocktail. Again, this is a mocktail, so I'm going to take that, and I'm going to go ahead and put this in. And then I'm going to just shake this up. So we're shaking it, mixing that, chilling it. Again, these lemons came straight from my backyard, which is why I call this the freshest lemonade in the world. And so they're not cool like they would be if they had been in the refrigerator. So it's important to chill this down, and that's where this cocktail shaker does a great job. So getting this nice and chilled, nice and mixed. And then with the Good Grips cocktail shaker, I pull that up here, you can see it in the carousel. I can go ahead and open the top of this, and then I can simply pour my nicely chilled lemonade out into a cup. And it keeps all the ice in there. If there had been any seeds that had snuck through, that strainer will take care of them. You can see all the ice stays in there, and then I can try this out. Yum, really delicious. I can add a little bit more sugar by adding a bit more of that simple syrup, mixing that in. I tend to like it pretty sweet, but here we go. This is the freshest lemonade in the world, literally just picked. Yum, that's delicious. Extremely fresh. It's nice to make it with those Meyer lemons from my own backyard. And again, you know, if I was going to make this for a big group, I just did about, looks like I did about 3 lemons of these little tiny ones. I could certainly make quite a lot of that. Could make it a little bit less strong too. This is a little bit more lemony flavor in it, but you could also add a bit more water. Again, I added about 1/2 cup of water. It looks like maybe a bit more. And then the juice from these, again, using my juicer, my Oxo Good Grips citrus juicer that just makes juicing so many of these lemons so easy. So if you're doing this for a party, I think it would be really challenging to sit there and use the traditional juicer. So it's great to have this and to be able to quickly and easily juice all of these lemons so that I can make that. And then obviously the shaker is great because this is super chilled. I don't even need to put ice in it, and it's already totally drinkable, refreshing, and delicious. And this will go great, especially if I left it, since I left it a little bit on the strong side. When I do end up using my Sufganiyot batter and frying that up, this will be a really refreshing drink to have with it, balance out the sweetness of these donuts. So you can see this is actually starting to rise, starting to get bigger in here, so that's great. I'm going to go ahead and leave that for a while, and we'll let that rise, and I'm going to fry it up later. So just to recap some of the things that we looked at today, this is the, pull it up here, the Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook. This is where we got the recipe for our Sufganiyot batter. It'll be jelly donuts for Hanukkah that I really look forward to frying up later and enjoying. And this has 50 traditional recipes, so it's a lot of different special occasions, everyday things like bagels. It's by Beth Lee, and she's based down in San Francisco, around San Jose. So it's a really great local book here. And we made the Sufganiyot. It's on page 119, and that is basically a jelly donut that's usually enjoyed around the Hanukkah holiday. And the reason for that actually is that Hanukkah is celebrating miracle of oil lasting for 8 nights. So you tend to eat things that are fried in oil. So it's a good excuse to eat jelly donuts like Sufganiyot here, as well as latkes and all kinds of other traditional food items. So again, in making something like that, it's really nice to have the Oxo Good Grips scale, because you can measure out your ingredients really precisely, as I did for the flour. It's really important for baking, maybe not as much for Sufganiyot, but certainly for other baked goods. It's really great to be able to measure precisely and not have to look at just volume, to actually look at weight down to the gram here, again with the Oxo Good Grips scale. The grater that I showed there worked great. My Oxo Good Grips box grater worked great for, I'm sorry about the pun there, I didn't even mean to say that, but it worked really well to make the zest that I needed to flavor the Sufganiyot batter. It also works great for cheese, all kinds of other things you might need to make in your kitchen. And we also looked at the OXO Good Grips flour container I've got here, and sugar container. These have this little pop-on lids that seal them up. So this is something that will stay nicely sealed. I can use just a bit of flour and then return that to my pantry. I don't have to worry about it going bad. The final thing I mentioned is this Doan utensil holder. Really great to be able to take your utensils, keep them right there in the kitchen, right next to the stove. It's easy, it's accessible, and I can just grab these out. And it's nice looking. It has a nice pattern on it. It's ceramic. Doan sent this to me to test, so thank you for that. And the author sent me this Essential Jewish Baking Cookbook as well to test out, so thank you for that too. I'm looking forward to making a lot more things from it. And then for our lemonade, we looked at, again, the OXO Good Grips single wall cocktail shaker. You can use this for cocktails, but as I showed, it's also a great way to chill lemonade when you're using freshly picked lemons like I did here. It's nice to be able to chill that juice down really quickly. Again, shaking with some ice is a great way to accomplish that. So even if you're not making cocktails, you can still do some creative things with that. And we also looked at the simplest way to make that super fresh lemonade. Again, I love this juicer because it just simplifies the process so much. You're not having to sit there and squeeze lemons on a traditional juicer. You can just put the halves in and then clamp this down, get the juice out really readily. So thank you for joining me, and enjoy cooking these items.